Hi, my name is Jonah Weeder. I come to you tonight to talk about the future of America and the possibility of having the United States of Wal-Mart. I have put together a case that states that Wal-Mart is in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. I'm going to read to you my case notes and let you determine for yourself whether or not you feel like we're in danger. I will print out the links that show a violation of the Sherman and Clayton antitrust laws, especially in relation to Sherman law, contracts with competitors, and restraint of trade, unfair methods of competition. My knowledge was obtained from the internet and is not insider information. Walmart, I believe, is in violation of these laws. Just to let you guys know, I'm a student in the Law Office Study Program. I'm a protege of Brett DeForest Maxfield, who was an associate of a William LaRoche. First, I want to start out by reading my first article that starts my case, which Walmart puts the squeeze on food costs. The retailer is using its clout with vendors to hold on to its everyday low prices. Now, what does clout make you think of? It makes me think of being a bully. With gas, grain, and dairy prices exploding, you'd think the biggest seller of cornflakes and Cocoa Puffs would be getting hit by rising food costs. But Walmart has temporarily rolled back prices on hundreds of food items by as much as 30% this year. How? By pressuring vendors to take cost out of the supply chain. When our grocery suppliers bring increases, we just don't accept them. Market fluctuations are not accounted for, says Pamela Cohen, Walmart's general merchandise manager for perishables. To be sure, Walmart isn't the only retailer working to cut fat from the food chain, but as the largest grocer, Walmart's food and consumables revenue is nearly $100 billion. It has a disproportionate amount of leverage. Here's how the retailer is throwing its weight around. Shrink the goods. Ever wonder why the cereal box is only 2/3 full? Food makers love big boxes because they serve as billboards on store shelves. Walmart has been working to change that by promising suppliers that their shelf space won't shrink even if their boxes do. As a result, some of its vendors have re-engineered their packaging. General Mills hamburger helper is now made with denser pasta shapes. Can you believe that? Denser pasta shapes. Wow. Allowing the same amount of food to fit into a 20% smaller box at the same price. The change has saved 8,900 thousand pounds of paper fiber and eliminated 500 trucks from the road. That takes jobs away from union drivers and truckers, giving General Mills a cushion to absorb some of the rising costs. It cuts out. Okay, here's where it gets confusing. This is why they're so profitable. They cut out the middlemen. Walmart typically buys its brand name coffee from a supplier which buys from a cooperative of growers which works with the roaster, which means there are whole bunches of people muddled in the middle, says Walmart spokesperson Terry Radai. In April, the chain began buying directly from a cooperative of Brazilian coffee farmers for its Sam's Choice brand, cutting 3 or 4 steps out of the supply chain. Branding and packaging online goods, maybe made in China so that they can save money. Go locavore. Walmart has been going green, but not entirely for the reasons you might think. By sourcing more produce locally, it now sells Wisconsin-grown yellow corn in 56 stores in or near Wisconsin. It is able to cut shipping costs. We are looking at how to reduce the number of miles our supplier's truck travels, says Cohen Mark Turner, whose Bushwick Potato Company supplies Walmart stores in the Northeast. Says the cost of shipping 1 truck of spuds from his farm to Maine to local Walmart stores costs less than $1,000, compared with several $1,000s for a big rig from Idaho. Last year, his shipments to Walmart grew 13%. Of course, but that takes money away from the union and for truckers. In fact, it's the small suppliers that are feeling the pain from Walmart's pushback. The most Bushwick has seen its costs rise 10% over the past year, but has passed only half the amount on to Walmart and its other retailers. Half the amount. Walmart should be picking up the full amount. They can afford to. For consumers who are having a hard time paying the $3.80 for a gallon of milk, however, without those measures, that sticker shock would be a lot worse. So that can be interpreted two ways. It's not exactly like I'm slandering Walmart right now, but the clout that they have with vendors is definitely very strong. Now I want to go into another issue. I want to talk about the Sherman trade laws, and the goal was to prevent restraints of free competition in business and commercial transactions, which tended to restrict production, raise prices, or otherwise control the market to the detriment of purchases or consumers of goods and services, all of which had come to be regarded as a special form of public injury. For that reason, the frame restraint of trade, which, as will presently appear, had a well understood meaning at common law, which made the means of defining the activities prohibited. The addition of the words or commerce among the several states was not an additional kind of restraint to be prohibited by the Sherman Act, but was the means used to relate the prohibited restraint of trade to interstate commerce for constitutional purposes. Atlantic Cleaners and Dyers versus United States 286 U.S. 427 286 U.S. 433, so that Congress through its commerce power might suppress and penalize restraints on the competitive system which involved or affected interstate commerce, because many forms of restraint upon commercial competition extend across state lines, and now country borders so as to make regulation by state action difficult or impossible. Congress enacted the Sherman Act. It was in the sense of preventing restraints on commercial competition that Congress exercised all power it possessed. Atlantic Cleaners versus Dyers versus United States Supreme Court. Basically what we're doing is, this is the summary. In 1890, Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Law, the source of all American anti-monopoly laws. The law forbade every contract, scheme, deal, or conspiracy to restrain trade. Through the phase, restraint of trade remained subjective. The Standard Oil Group quickly attracted attention from antitrust authorities, leading to a lawsuit filed by Ohio Attorney General David K. Watson. From 1882 to 1906, Standard paid out $5,486,436 million in dividends at 65.4% payout ratio. As in common practice, $5,486,436,000 in dividends at 65.4% payout ratio. As in common practice in business, a fraction of the profits were put back into the business, rather than being distributed to stockholders. The total net earnings from 82 to 1906 amounted to a lot of money, exceeding the dividends by previous years. The later amount was used for plant expansions. And just on a side note, you guys, I am bipolar and diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, so if I seem a little paranoid in any of the aspects that I'm speaking of, then just take it with a grain of salt. The political environment where the Clayton Act was passed was one where government was concerned by the growing economic sphere and monopoly of certain areas of Congress. The 1912 presidential election put the issue at the center of debate between the three political parties running for presidency: the GOP of William H. Taft, the Democratic Party candidate Woodrow Wilson, and the Progressive Party candidate Theodore Roosevelt. There was also mention of the need for an agency to supervise the regulation. This agency was not included in the Sherman Act of 1890. The act was an attempt to define more clearly the basic policy of the United States with respect to the organization and control of the industry. On May 15, 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the lower court judgment and declared that Standard Oil Group to be an unreasonable monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act. It ordered Standard to break up into 34 independent companies with different boards of directors. The biggest two of the companies were Exxon and Mobil. Standard's president, John Rockefeller, had long since retired from any management role, but as he owned a quarter of the shares of the resultant companies and those shares' values mostly doubled, he emerged from this dissolution as the richest man in the world. As Standard Oil grew exponentially, engaged in business strategies, tactics, and practices They were lawful, but drove many small businesses under. Can we see the resemblance from when Walmart comes to town and takes all small, mid-sized businesses out? Standard Oil became widely criticized in the public eye, even as it made Rockefeller the richest man in modern history. By 1890, Standard Oil controlled 88% of the refined oil flows in the United States. The state of Ohio successfully sued Standard, compelling the dissolution of the trust in 1892, but Standard only separated off Standard Oil of Ohio and kept control of it. Eventually, the state of New Jersey changed its and I know this is a lot of boring information, but for those of you who understand it, I'm sure that you can get where I'm coming from. The state of New Jersey changed its incorporation laws to allow a company to hold shares in other companies in any state. So in 1899, the Standard Oil Trust, based at 26 Broadway in New York, was legally reborn as a holding company. The Standard Oil Company of New Jersey was held stock in 41 other companies, which controlled other companies, which in turn yet other companies. This conglomerate was seen by the public as all-pervasive, controlled by a select group of directors and completely unaccountable. And just for the record, my grandpa actually worked for Standard Oil Company, and right now I will actually show you one of his cards before it actually became Chevron. The Sherman Antitrust Laws states that contracts with competitors in restraint of trade, unfair methods of competition such as local price cutting at the points where necessary to suppress competition, and espionage of the business of competitors, the operation of bogus independent companies, and payments of rebates on oil with the like intent. One of Wal-Mart's independent companies is a company called Murphy Oil Corporation, I believe, and Murphy Oil Corporation is one of the fastest growing companies in the United States right now. China is starting to get entrenched in China, which means that possible pipelines and oil rights could be forged between the Murphy Oil Corporation. It's an international oil and gas company that conducts business through various operating subsidiaries. The company produces oil and natural gas in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Malaysia, the Republic of Congo, and conducts exploration activities worldwide. The company owns marketing operations in the United States, United Kingdom, including a refinery in Milford Haven, Wales. Murphy USA Marketing Company operates retail gasoline stations under the Murphy USA brand across 23 states in the U.S. These are high-volume, low-cost retail gasoline stations, primarily in the parking areas of Wal-Mart supercenters. Murphy Oil USA Incorporated also operates a network of 6 company-owned terminals. These terminals, along with numerous third-party terminals, provides fuel supply to our retail network and wholesale customers throughout 23 states. Right now, their stock as of October 19 was at $53.66 a share. That's expensive. That means they're giving Exxon and British Petroleum a run for their money. Another law that protects monopolies is the Clayton Antitrust Law, which is discrimination in price, services, or facilities. The Clayton Antitrust Act was passed by Congress as an amendment to clarify and supplement the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. It was drafted by Henry de Lamar Clayton. The act prohibited exclusive sales contracts, local price cutting to freeze out competitors, rebates, interlocking directorates and corporations capitalized at $1 million or more in the same field of business, and intercorporate stock holdings. Labor unions and agriculture cooperatives were excluded from the forbidden combinations in the restraint of trade. These acts restricted the use of injunction against labor, and it legalized peaceful strikes, picketing, and boycotts. It declared that the labor of a human being is not a commodity or article of commerce. which is different from other parts of the world.